The Subaru XV has gone a long way. From its first-generation model as a body-clad Impreza hatchback, it was known as the Outback Sport in the US. If you don't believe it, the all-new 2018 model is here. It may look like a typical compact crossover, but it's got everything you could ever need in a crossover. You don't believe it? Here are 6 reasons why. 1. Tough, solid platform. Like the 2017 Impreza, the all-new 2018 Subaru XV rides on the company's brand-new platform called the Subaru Global Platform. Not only is it going to make the solid Subaru XV even more so, but it also effectively means less unwanted noise, harshness, and vibration, NVH. In fact, Subaru says it's around 6 decibels quieter for the front and 4 decibels for the rear passengers at 100 km per hour. Oh, and it also improves its crash safety by up to 40% compared to its predecessor. 2. Designed for fun adventure. Fun adventure is the guiding principle behind the all-new Subaru. For starters, the curb weight has barely changed despite its slightly larger size, improved solidity, and better equipment. This was done through some ingenious weight savings in the engine, 12 kilograms, and transmission, 7.8 kilograms, among others. Couple that with a 5mm lower center of gravity, new way of mounting the anti-roll bar directly to the body, reduces body roll by 50%, and brick-based torque vectoring control, it makes the Subaru XV pitch less while exhibiting better stability. Like the 2017 Impreza, it also benefits from a 13-1 steering rack. It's essentially the same as the Subaru BRZs, so you can pretty much guess how fun it could be digging through corners. 3. It's actually off-road capable. As great as the Subaru XV on the smooth pavement thanks to better straight-line stability and cornering performance, it's a gem on the rough stuff as well. It's not going to be as hardcore as a true body-on-frame SUV with locking differentials, but the Subaru XV manages to keep its 220mm ground clearance while still boasting an 18-degree approach and 30-degree departure angle. And since this is a Subaru, it does come with the trademark symmetrical all-wheel drive system. Defaulting to a 60% front and 40% rear, it can send power to the wheels that need it the most. Its sure-footedness is boosted also by the new X-Mode system, which modifies several vehicle parameters: engine, transmission, all-wheel drive power distribution, specifically for off-road driving. 4. Substantial form. The 2018 Subaru XV comes in 2 new colors, cool gray khaki and sunshine orange. Still, its looks are quite derivative from the Hawkeye headlights, hexagonal grille, and even the liberal use of matte black cladding. But go beyond what you see and you begin to appreciate the 2018 Subaru XV's packaging. It's barely larger than its predecessor, but it's far roomier inside. Credit goes partially to the longer wheelbase, but a vastly redone interior frees up space in all areas imaginable: space between front passengers, plus 20mm, front shoulder space, plus 29mm, rear knee room, plus 26mm, and rear headroom, plus 10mm. Even the ingress-egress has improved with a 10mm lower interior floor height together with a 40mm lower door sill. 5. Sense of premium space. Subaru has invested a lot in improving their interior design and execution, and the 2018 Subaru XV is yet another great example of that. Like the Impreza, the interior is designed to flow from the doors all the way to the instrument panel, creating a sense of space and security. Unlike the Impreza though, contrasting orange stitching highlight this crossover's more daring attitude. Compared to its predecessor, the 2018 Subaru XV also benefits from a smaller and meatier 3-spoke steering wheel, a 6 or 8-inch Starlink infotainment system with 6 speakers, depending on the model, and 2 fancy full-colored multifunction displays, one 4.2-inch sandwiched by the analog gauges and another at the top of the center console. An electric parking brake is standard. 6. World-class safety. Subaru has made safety an integral part of their vehicles, and the 2018 Subaru XV paves that way forward. Apart from excellent active and passive safety features, it also comes with a slew of preventive safety technology, including high beam assist, which automatically switches the headlights between high and low beam depending on oncoming traffic. Steering responsive headlights that moves the light beams left or right when turning at corners to illuminate the direction of travel. And Subaru rear vehicle detection that offers blind spot detection, lane change assistance, and reversing assistance. All Subaru showrooms across the country are taking orders for the 2018 Subaru XV, with customers' deliveries to start by the last week of September. It's available in two variants, the base 2.0i, which is P1,348,000, and the range-topping 2.0is, which is at P1,538,000. Both models have no price increase versus the outgoing model.
If you're looking to have a bit of fun behind the wheel of a car all year long, the Subaru WRX is a no-brainer purchase. A turbocharged, flat-4 boxer engine sits under its hood, and a full-time all-wheel drive system puts the power to the ground, while a nimble package makes the entire car stupid fun to drive. What's not to like? But the WRX formula has been pretty much the same for ages. When I drove the 2018 Subaru WRX STI, I liked the car, but I couldn't get my head around the fact that it still feels like any other fast Subaru I've driven for the past decade. Where the hell does Subaru's R&D even go? So when I was given the chance to get behind the wheel of a first-generation Japan-spec WRX wagon from the mid-1990s, one we never got in North America, I jumped at the chance to find out if I was right. Turns out I was. What is it? Introduced in 1992 as a replacement to the GL sedan and Loyal wagon, the Impreza was, and still is today, Subaru's compact entry-level car, set to compete against cars like the Honda Civic and Toyota Corolla. The WRX, which apparently stands for World Rally Experimental, was a fortified Impreza developed specifically for rally racing. These cars only came in all-wheel drive. Back then not all Subarus were. Some were front drive, had a more powerful turbo engine, a hood scoop, a stiffened suspension and stronger brakes. The WRX was reserved exclusively for the Japanese and sometimes European markets until we finally got it in the early 2000s. The model you see here is a 1996 car, GF8D, or the first year the WRX was offered in a wagon body style. In Japan, this version was called the Impreza Gravel Express, which is delightful. Power came from, you guessed it, a 2.0-liter, turbocharged flat-4. Back then, Subaru would say the WRX would pump out 240 horsepower and 224 pounds-ft of torque. An STI version of the car was available with 276 horsepower. Many claim these cars were underrated due to Japan's Gentleman Agreement Act, which limited the power output of sports cars under 300 horsepower. A 5-speed manual gearbox was the only way to get the WRX moving. Why does it matter? Along with the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, the Rex one of the most iconic rally-bred machines of the 1990s. But even more than that, it ranks among the top cars that inspired an entire generation of kids to fall in love with cars in the first place. The 1990s were a glorious era for the Japanese car brands. Each manufacturer offered some sort of unique, high-performance car. Mazda had the RX-7, Honda had the NSX, Nissan had the Skyline, Toyota had the Supra, and Subaru had the WRX. This is a car the millennial generation of car geeks grew up tuning and racing on Gran Turismo. But the pre-2000 Subaru WRX matters even more because it was forbidden fruit here in North America for so long. A real WRX from the 90s is rare as hell in our neck of the woods, and the wagon version is even more of a unicorn. You Americans can't import them, but we can up here in Canada, because the laws allow for imports after 15 years instead of 25. And we get free healthcare too, suckers. Oops, sorry, that was the wiper stock. This wasn't my first time getting behind the wheel of a right-hand drive car. My little brother once owned a JDM Honda Civic. Up here in Montreal these cars are quite common. But it's always weird driving on the wrong side. The shift pattern is the same as our cars, so first gear is a far-fetch, and reverse is super close to your knee. That feels odd. Even more unusual is that the stalks are inverted, so the blinker is on the right side of the steering wheel, and the wipers are on the left. This meant I looked like a jackass sitting at intersections with the wipers on full blast and the blinker off. In Canada, JDM cars can be registered in some provinces as long as they pass a special inspection. The owner, Phil, purchased his car from a place called BPro JDM Auto Imports in Calgary, Alberta. They basically take care of finding a car for you in Japan, and then have it shipped to the port of Vancouver. The entire experience is turnkey, just like buying a car in any other used car dealership. The moment our man Phil's Subaru was dropped out of its container, he flew straight to Vancouver, paid an inspection and customs tax, gave the car an oil change, and made sure to introduce his JDM ride to a proper Canadian greeting by stuffing a Tim Hortons coffee in its cup holder, and driving it across the country all the way back to Quebec. Phil works in Alberta, but returns to Quebec during vacation and holidays to see friends and family. And he does it all in his old Subaru wagon. Disappointments? To be fair, not many. Perhaps the only area where I was slightly let down was in the car's interior and general build quality, which had been a common gripe about the brand for years. I had forgotten how much old Subarus feel like tin cans inside, with very little actual noise insulation and flimsy materials. The WRX is cheap speed, but here's where the cheap part is most apparent. There's a cool Nardi steering wheel and shifter, but apart from that, the dashboard has absolutely no styling whatsoever and the seats aren't really comfortable. Also, everything is grey and boring in there. Except for a period-correct bolt-on stereo head unit, there aren't many electronics. But frankly, that's pretty much it. The car itself drives formidably well, and feels a hem like any other Subaru I've driven. But I'll get back on that later. Casual driving. Since it's essentially based on an economy car, the WRX has always been a great daily driver. And in wagon form, even more so. There's ample room for 4 passengers in there, 5 being a stretch, and the hatch will eat up 66 cubes of your junk with the rear seats folded down. That's quite decent, especially if you compare with current small wagons hatchbacks out there. For instance, a Toyota Corolla M only manages 42 cubic feet of cargo room. A Volkswagen Golf Sport wagon does 67 cubes. One more than a Subaru. Even a brand new Subaru Impreza hatchback only hauls 55 cubic space of stuff. Makes you think, doesn't it? So yes, a JDM WRX from 20 years ago does daily driving better than a lot of new small cars out there. Hard driving. When I say this old Subaru feels the same to drive as a new one, I'm not saying that it's actually the same car as a new one. I'm well aware that there have been a lot of revisions to the boxer engine and the all-wheel drive system over the past 2 decades. What I'm saying is that the car feels the same to drive. This means that you still hear the cool and sort of addictive rumble sound of the boxer engine, which also makes it sound like it's broken. It also means that when you punch the accelerator there isn't all that much low-end torque. Once boost finally kicks in, you get a satisfying shove in the chest as the engine picks up and goes, revving eagerly all the way to redline. And as is traditional with all performance Subarus, the gearing is short, so you shift often. The clutch has a nice firm bite to it and is easy to catch. The car always feels securely planted to the ground, as if it was attached to the tarmac with Velcro. And the excellent weight distribution quickly gives you confidence behind the wheel, where you'll realize the car's limits of adhesion are rather high, which in turn will motivate you to hoon the thing like a rally driver everywhere you'll go. So yes, the Subaru WRX is, and has always been, a kick-ass car to drive hard. Value. Our friend Phil paid $4,200 Canadian for his JDM Icon, about $3,400 US. The car was delivered with 130,000 kilometers, 80,000 miles. It was in decent shape, but not stellar. Phil had to invest a bit in his machine to make it look as pristine as the way you see it here. In total, he estimates the car cost him about $10,000 Canadian after all the aesthetic mods, which included a full body job, Jun front lip, tine coilovers, and wheels from a 2003 Bug-Eye WRX. The place where he bought the car currently sells one for $5,999 Canadian. That's amazingly cheap considering the amount of practicality, performance, and historical significance you'll be getting from your car. When I asked Phil if he's had the traditional head gasket and oil consumption issues that have plagued Subarus for so long, he answered no. He claims his engine has been bulletproof ever since he bought the car, now reading 210,000 kilometers, 130,000 miles, on the odometer. He's only had one major issue with the car. The transmission blew at around 125,000 miles. It cost him $4,000 for a new gearbox, which also included a new clutch and flywheel. Verdict: I got out of my experience driving this future classic of an automotive icon with a huge question mark on my head. Should the fact that the car feels mostly identical behind the wheel as a new Subaru be a good or bad thing for the brand? There are two ways to look at it. Either Subaru's been sitting on its ass for the past 2 decades not innovating much and sailing casually on the fact that it sells cheap AWD drives to the masses. Or maybe Subaru has mastered a solid recipe and decided to stick with it. Kind of like what Porsche has been doing with the 911 for half a century. I prefer opting for the latter. Because although these cars constantly keep feeling like mom's familiar soup recipe when I drive them, they remain solid machines to drive, and get the job done as far as having a shitload of fun behind the wheel of a car. People like Phil have understood that you don't need to pay huge amounts of money for a quick, reliable, and practical car. Sometimes, the used car market has its own little gems. And this is definitely one of them.